There was this story about a babysitter who invited a man to come over and taught him how to summon the Candyman. She said one has to look in the mirror and say his name 5 times. Girl, I can hardly look at myself on a good day. So the man started but could only say it 4 times. As he waited downstairs, the woman said it one more time, summoning the evil. That night, she was killed and her period blood fell through the ceiling. It's one of the stories that Helen Lyle hears from the students. She and her thesis partner, Bernadette, have been doing a study about the urban legend of Candyman for their master's degree. Helen's husband, Receding Airlines Trevor, is a professor at the University of Illinois. During one of his classes, Helen notices how a student named Stacy keeps flirting with him. I just know he's breaking that girl's back. Later, Helen reminds Trevor not to give his lecture about urban legends just yet, as they are getting the freshman students' opinions about it, but Trevor says he can't really move the lesson just to help his wife. That night, a janitor named Kitty tells Helen that a woman was killed by the Candyman over at the projects. The woman was Ruthie Jean. She was said to have heard noises that night before seeing a man go through the wall. She called for help, but no one believed her. When police arrived, she was already dead, killed with a hook. Helen doubts if it's true until she reads the story in the newspaper. She shares this with Bernadette, along with the fact that her apartment building was supposed to be Cabrini Green. But developers changed their minds after realizing that nothing would separate the housing project from other neighborhoods. So plaster was put all over the house, painted, and sold as units. And then a new building was built in a different location, which then became Cabrini Green. This means that both buildings have the same layout. Helen shows Bernadette that behind the medicine cabinet is a covered hole that leads directly to the next unit. She's convinced that the Candyman isn't real, but rather a man who enters through those holes to attack and kill people. She then dares Bernadette to summon Candyman. However, only Helen called his name 5 times. Nah, fam, real black folks wouldn't play with this shh. Helen gets a little scared that night, thinking someone's in the house, only to find out it's just Trevor, who actually looks like a living jump scare. The next day, she and Bernadette head to Cabrini Green despite the strong presence of gangs in the area. Bernadette is scared, but Helen insists on going. As soon as they arrive, men start to question if they are cops, alerting the other residents of their arrival. They take pictures as they go. Spray painted on walls are the words, "Sweets to the sweet." An angry woman opens the door, so they apologize and quickly head to Ruthie Jean's room. It doesn't take them long to find it. It's unlocked and they proceed without caution. The whole room is trashed and smells like something fierce. They head to the bathroom, and as expected, it has the same layout as Helen's condo unit. When they open the cabinet, a huge hole opens to the room beside it. Feeling brave, Helen decides to go in, even though Bernadette tells her it's not safe. She goes through Obama's mouth. She continues to take photos of everything, including the vandalized walls. On the other side, she stumbles on some candies, and when she opens one, inside is a blade. She returns only to ask for more camera film, but Bernadette stands her ground, insisting it's time to go. The woman from earlier catches them in the room, but before she can tell them off, her baby starts crying. Her name is Anne-Marie, and she's aloof, thinking they'll only bring her trouble. She knows the prejudice against them and says they're not all like the thugs the two met downstairs. Anne-Marie apologizes about her rudeness, explaining she's just protective of her baby Anthony. Helen looks lovingly at Anthony, admitting she'd love to be a mother someday. The conversation steers into the Candyman story, and Anne-Marie says that it's true. She heard Ruthie Jean screaming one night, so she called 911 a couple of times, but help didn't arrive. When the authorities got there, Ruthie Jean was already dead. This stays in Helen's mind even during dinner with Dr. Purcell, a professor. Purcell says he's already published a paper about the Candyman 10 years ago, adding that the story first appeared in the 1890s. Candyman was the son of a slave who became wealthy after creating a machine for shoemaking after the war. Candyman was sent to the best schools and became an amazing painter. A rich man commissioned him to paint his beautiful daughter. The two fell in love, and the daughter got pregnant. So the rich man hired some people to kill the Candyman. He was attacked and his hand was sawn off. There was a nearby apiary, and his body was smeared with honey from the hives. The bees stung him, and he died. His body was then burned on a pyre, and his ashes were scattered in Cabrini Green. Helen goes back to talk to Anne-Marie, but she's not home. But there's a kid there named Jake, so Helen asks the boy about the Candyman. Jake takes her outside, where Helen notices a pyre. Jake says it's for the upcoming bonfire. He then points her to a public restroom where Candyman was said to kill a boy. Jake adds that the boy was retarded. The boy was alone, and a hook sliced his privates off, and when help came, they found him bleeding on the floor. Curious, Helen enters the restroom to take some photos, and that's on white people's survival skills. Suddenly, a man holding a hook enters, followed by a few other men. He introduces himself as the Candyman. They stop Helen from leaving, and he even hits her with the hook. After the men leave, Jake goes inside and finds Helen bleeding on the floor. With the help of Detective Frank, the attacker gets caught immediately. The detective says the same man killed Ruthie Jean and the boy in the restroom. Bernadette surprises Helen, saying she has managed to save the photos, even though the camera is already broken. She also adds that some publishers are now interested in publishing their study. When Helen is finally alone, the Candyman appears before her. A tall man with a hook as a hand puts her in a trance with his full-on-as self. He tells Helen that he's compelled to show himself because she refuses to believe. He wants her to be his victim, saying killing is necessary to have people continue believing in his existence. With that, Helen wakes up with blood all over her body. She finds the decapitated head of a dog and picks up the knife beside it. When Anne-Marie sees her with a knife, she attacks her and accuses her of killing Anthony. Helen fights back and stabs Anne-Marie's arm just in time as the authorities arrive. Helen doesn't remember what happened, but suspicions against her weigh heavy. A big back officer tells her to remove her clothes, and I start to wonder if it's normal procedure or if this officer is lesbian. Detective Frank tells her she's under arrest. Helen calls Trevor, but he's not home to pick it up, even though it's already 3 in the morning. So Helen spends the night behind bars. She sees images that Anthony is still alive, but she doesn't know where to find him. Trevor arrives the next day with a lawyer. Reports later say that the blood found on her belonged to the dead dog and that Anthony might still be alive. Still, Helen insists she doesn't remember a thing. Helen stays at home checking the photos she took at Cabrini Green. One of them shows the Candyman standing behind her. Suddenly, the Candyman appears and starts chasing her. He asks Helen to give her life to him in exchange for Anthony. The Candyman says that Helen's disbelief affected those who believe in his existence. He's too strong, and Helen remains helpless as he cuts her with the hook. Outside, Bernadette rings the doorbell. Though feeling weak, Helen tries warning her not to come. Bernadette doesn't hear her, and she pushes the door open and enters. She was brutally killed. Now, why this black man only killing blacks? When Trevor walks in, Helen finds herself holding a knife. When the police arrive to take her away, Trevor can't do anything. Helen is brought to a facility, but even there, the Candyman follows her, asking for a kiss. One day, the nurses take her to Dr. Burke for evaluation. Dr. Burke says he's been monitoring Helen for a month now to see if she's able to stand trial. She's been charged with murder. The doctor then plays the footage of her in the room, thrashing on the bed, saying that Candyman attacked her, except no one else was there. So Helen offers to prove to him that the Candyman is real. She summons him by saying his name 5 times. Dr. Burke then starts gagging in his own blood. The Candyman has stabbed him from his anus and moved that hook upwards, killing him on the spot. He releases Helen before disappearing through the window. Knowing she'll be blamed, Helen escapes and makes her way to the other room. She attacks a nurse and steals her uniform. After successfully getting out, she hurries back home. To her surprise, she finds Stacy painting the walls. Trevor walks in wearing just a robe, shocked to see his wife. Helen realizes he's been cheating on her. Over it, she tosses the Pepto-Bismol paint. We done already knew that man was trifling. Trevor is obviously scared, so Helen dares him to reach the phone and call for help. As if giving up, she puts the phone down and leaves. Helen returns to Cabrini Green, enters Ruthie Jean's room, and continues to the next unit. She grabs the hook she finds inside and takes the stairs leading to a much bigger room. Paintings detailing the tragic life of the Candyman are all over the walls. She turns and finds him sleeping soundly. However, as soon as she stabs him, he opens his eyes and grabs her. He easily overpowers Helen, saying that if she gives herself to him, Anthony will live. Believing him, Helen lets him have his way with her. He really trying to get that hook in her vajayjay. Then he opens his robe, revealing hundreds of bees in his rotting body, but now it's too late for her to say no. He gives her an open-mouthed kiss, and then he takes the baby away. Later, Helen wakes up alone and finds the words, "It was always you, Helen," written on the wall alongside a painting of her face. She hears baby Anthony crying and follows the sound until it leads her to the pyre outside. When Jake looks out, he sees the hook poking out and assumes that the Candyman has entered inside. He alerts the others and soon people have gathered to start the bonfire. Helen finally finds the baby still alive under all that mess. But before they can go, Candyman grabs her from behind and prevents her from leaving. He's been planning this all along, knowing that she'll show up to save Anthony. As the outside starts to burn, Helen stabs Candyman with a burning wood. She covers Anthony and crawls her way out. However, a huge plank on fire falls on her and slowly burns her back. She continues to crawl, keeping the baby under her until she makes it out of the burning pyre. The men try to put out the fire, but it's already too late, and Helen dies along with Candyman. But Anne-Marie is overjoyed, finding Anthony unharmed under Helen's body. Only a few people attend her burial. Just before it ends, a large group of Cabrini Green residents shows up to show their sympathy. Jake throws a hook into the hole without saying anything. Sometime after that, Trevor still keeps thinking about Helen. Stacy has moved in with him, but he realizes it's not at all the same. Even she notices that he's not the fun guy she fell in love with. Thinking about his ex, Trevor calls Helen's name 5 times while looking at the mirror. When he turns the lights off, Helen appears behind him and attacks him viciously with a hook. Stacy realizes something's wrong, and when she checks, she finds Trevor soaked in his own blood. This time, she's the one holding the knife. And that's on being a trifling student, going after a fugly married man at that. What did you guys think of this one? It's hard to reconcile the many plot holes of the movie. We can just chuck it up to Candyman being something supernatural rather than grounded on reality. It does put into light how easily a killer can easily get away with murder if he's only murdering black people in the projects. Police barely even responded to their calls.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.